everybody to our live workshop today for Branding Academy members. Now, this is our paid group for the Branding Academy, but we also have some of our FemBoss sisters on the call as well today so that they can learn as much as they can about their own brand, gain a little bit of insight and clarity if they need. I will mention more details about Branding Academy at the end for anyone interested, but just to let you know, you can still join the December class if you like. And if not, we have another one coming up in March. But either way, feel free to tag me in the group, send me a private message, or email me directly, and I can get you registered if you'd like. So we are covering weeks 1 through 3. It's going to be really fast-paced today. It's a live workshop. It's all about you and your questions, not about me. I'm basically just going to be reiterating the content that you found in your courses over the last 3 weeks in Branding Academy School. So I will go through a little bit of the module, kind of distill it down into the basic essence, and then we're going to be answering the questions that were posted in our Facebook event page, as well as any of the questions in the live call today. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to be covering, weeks 1 through 3 was about foundations, your vision, your big plan for the future of your business, your mindset, which is very important, and naming your brand and taglines, which was this week's module. So we're going to go over all of that on this call today. And if you have any questions at any time, if you're live and you have audio, just unmute yourself and jump right in, ask me a question. No need to feel a little bit ashamed of interrupting. That is more than welcome today. Otherwise, use our chat box for all of you who are muted today or at work or just not participating on your mic. Feel free to use the chat box, and I will be checking it intermittently throughout the live workshop. So the first thing that we started with in Branding Academy in week 1 was brand foundations and vision. So before we even dive into the technicalities, right, we want to really set up our mindset for success. And this is the part that a lot of people tend to overlook or not prioritize or not seem to find it as important as the formula. And I really want to start with that first before we talk about the actual module of week 1, because I had an interesting conversation this week as well with another business colleague of mine who kind of brought up a very interesting point, and it's kind of mimicked a lot on Facebook. You can kind of take a step back and realize that this is happening a lot, but it's basically about the industry of business formulas and the fact that people do not want to create their own path. They kind of want something that's conveniently going to take them to the finish line by copying a formula from somebody else who has been there and done that. Now, of course, that kind of seems like the best way to go about something, right? Like, if I wanted to be the next Oprah, well, why not read her biography or take her masterclass or go to her live, conference somewhere where there's 30,000 other people that want to be Oprah and try to figure out exactly how she did it. Or if I wanted to be Steve Jobs, I'd probably do the same thing. If I wanted to be Kim Kardashian, I'd do the same thing. I would get butt implants and I would start wearing really tight clothes. I would marry like someone super famous, and hopefully I would end up being worth $75 million. But the bad thing about that is that when you stop to think about it, what she brought to my attention was that those people, those pioneering people, didn't follow someone else's formula. We're trying to now follow their formula, but they were forging their own path. So what I really wanted people to do in week 1 of Branding Academy was get into their own vision, set up their own mindset, and set up what they want to see happen with their business instead of doing all these courses, reading all these books, bookmarking all the people that they want to be, looking on Facebook and Instagram to see who do they want to copy and emulate and figure out what their formula is, and just kind of fill in the blanks with what they're passionate about, but still copying somebody else's formula. Because what happens when you do that is, yes, you will reach the finish line faster, because a formula will help you avoid quote-unquote mistakes, of the trade, but you're reaching a finish line that isn't your own. So what a vision helps you do is to stay on track to what personally you want to do with your business. Because if you wanted to be somebody else, you should just not be an entrepreneur. You should just be an employee of that person that you're trying to copy. So I really want that to drive home. I don't want people to prioritize impatience over doing this nitty-gritty work, because what you're doing is you're rushing to somewhere that you're going to have to turn around and go, oh shoot, this is not where I wanted to be. What did I overlook? What did I miss? And it doesn't take that much time. It's just we like to avoid looking internally, really thinking about what we want. And so I'm hoping that the students of Branding Academy, you did the daily action tips 1 and 2, you did your vision board, and for everybody else that's not a student, you are very free to join us on the next vision board workshop we're going to have, which is for everybody in the group. We're going to make it free. And we're also going to have an in-person version in a couple of cities as well. So this is not just for members of Branding Academy, this is for everybody in the Facebook group. Please join us when we post that event on the page. We'll let you know when it happens. But everybody by now should know what a vision board is, so you can start doing that and working on it little by little if you want. But for the students of Branding Academy, what I had them do was to do an actual essay, something that takes a little bit of time and thought, not rushing through it, trying to maybe give yourself the arena and the atmosphere that would be conducive to thinking about what on a macro level do you want your business to look like. And something I mentioned in the action tip was try to think about it, maybe even a Shark Tank point of view. If you want to make it fun for yourself and an exercise, what would it look like if someone was buying your business 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What would that look like? And think that way and work backwards. So it's that really cliche question, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? But make it for your business. If you could just have the ideal painted picture for your business, what would it look like? And then work backwards from there. And so do that little essay as your exercise this weekend, or make a vision board. And I guarantee you that would keep you on track when you're starting to, slip into that little habit that we all have. It's a bad habit, but it is very hard to not follow in the footsteps of other people when we're just really hoping that we can start making money and getting clients and being big. And, we want to be a best-selling author or sold out with our product or the biggest coach, the most famous in our industry. I can completely understand, but you want to be yourself at the end of the day. So just a little food for thought. So once you have that mindset and your vision set up, then it's easy to start thinking about the rest of the stuff. Not super easy, but easier. So what we have for brand foundations is archetypes, which is really important. So what kind of brand type will you choose for your company? And we'll go over a few options here. So you might already have a product or service that you want to focus on, but for everybody else, it might be a little bit of a struggle because you're trying to juggle the different options that you have for yourself, or you did the work and thought about your vision, and you're wondering, oh boy, now do I put everything into one category? Do I think big and think about the future options that I want to sell to my customers? Where do I go? What kind of archetype do I have? So we're going to kind of reiterate what we went over in week 1, and I'll tell you the different options, and you see what kind of resonates with you. What I like to do with these workshops is that you hear my voice, so you can hear the explanation and you get a little bit more clarity than just reading it yourself and kind of being isolated in your own thoughts. So we have company, product, service, and of course personal brand. Now, starting with company, it's interesting because you can have 2 different options with that. You have monolithic and family underneath just the company brand option. So with monolithic, you can actually have a master brand for all your products and services. And I like to just drill this home with the point of automobiles because it's the easiest to visualize. So the master brand would be the brand stamp. Just imagine those old school, like ironed, heated up with fire stamps that would stamp every single product and service underneath it the same way. So BMW, Lincoln, GMC, Lexus, Audi. Think of those cars. BMW is the master brand, but every make and model every year, it's still a BMW car. It's not a whole different entity or different brand on its own. It's just underneath that master brand, the monolithic. Now, a family brand is a little bit different, and I'll give you another option that will help you instantly visualize that. Let's think of Pepsi or Target, or even better, Virgin Group. I love Virgin Group. If you don't know the story of Richard Branson, you're really missing out. So head to Amazon.com and make sure you learn a little bit about him. But one of my favorite family brand groups is Virgin. And so what comes to mind when you think of Virgin Group? Virgin Airlines, Virgin Mobile Phone, which I've happened to have one, or Virgin Stereo Group, or Virgin Record, which is now obviously they closed down Virgin Record. But remember back in the day when we were in school and you could go to the Virgin Record store and actually buy CDs instead of downloading your music? So that's an example of a family brand that every single brand underneath it, the sub-brands, are their own entities, their own teams, their own headquarters, their own marketing, their own target markets. The way that Richard Branson and co. would market Virgin Record Store is not the same way he would market the airline or the phone company. So that's what it means when you have a family brand that's an umbrella that has different brands underneath it versus just an umbrella that has different products and services underneath it. Another example is product brand. So product brand is a little bit different in that you're just going to have that one signature product, and that's your brand. Now, even when you think of Pepsi Cola, it's different because Pepsi Cola went in and started making food and snacks and all kinds of different stuff. But just think of one single product. A good example, if you're an entrepreneur and you love day planners as much as I do, would be Whitney English, and the design planner. So that's just one product. She doesn't go and do a ton of other stuff. She's known for her one amazing day planner and has stuck with that. So that would be an example of a product company. So if you have something that you set out to accomplish and you just want to do that one thing and do it well and be known for it for the rest of your life, then you're probably better up setting a product brand. Of course, you can always think big later. You never know what opportunities are going to come to you. You might end up getting a book deal or a TV show for being known for that one product, but it's still a product brand when you're starting off. Same thing with a service. It's very, very similar if you're just offering that one signature service. So think about, in a really simple context for you to wrap your brain around, you're in the airport and you got to get your shoes shined. If you have that one guy in the corner who's there every single day, Monday to Friday, that's his one signature service. He's not a mechanic also, no, he's the best shoe shiner in town. So that's an example. You're just setting up that one signature service, and that's what you do. So if you know Marie Forleo, for example, and you know her school that she offers once a year, once every 2 years, then that's an example as well. Someone that might have one single retreat service, or your nutrition coaching, just that one service, and that's what you want to stick to. And then later on you might add ancillary stuff, like I said, again, books or being known and you're speaking and doing that kind of stuff, but it's still the one signature service that you're basing your entire brand wrapped around. And then lastly, I think the most self-explanatory one, of course, is personal brand. So this goes back to the example I gave you with Oprah. Very much a personal brand, even if she has a TV show, radio, doesn't matter what she's doing. At this point now, Oprah is a personal brand. But you can see how powerful personal brands are when you start to look at what you can do with it when you're so known for something, when you're known for connecting emotionally with people over story. You can then be a best-selling author. You can then open a school in Africa. You can then have a TV show for 30 years. You can have a radio show for 10 years. You can, be a news anchor if you want. You can do everything. You can have your own network. But your personal brand is that you're known for something and people go to you. You're the community builder, the relationship sex expert, or the person that knows fashion and trends, and people are always calling on you to come to ABC at 6 p.m. and tell us what's new for the season, what happened during Fashion Week. Or you're the relationship sex expert and people want you to write a column for them, and you're making money off of being a freelance writer and also traveling and holding conferences. But it's because you're known for something in your context. You stick in that one avenue, and then the world is your oyster after that. So you also, of course, need to know your personality. It's a little bit fun if you want to do an experiment for yourself and take those personality quizzes or an entrepreneur quiz to make sure you're really setting yourself up for success, because once you choose the avenue of personal brand, you can't really divert after that if you find out later on, holy shit, I'm an introvert, I'm shy, I hate talking, I hate people. You don't want to be in a kind of like Larry David situation where you find yourself in really, really precarious social situations and you can't hold your own at a 6-hour conference or a weekend retreat, or being televised when people invite you to come speak. So make sure that you are okay with being the spokesperson of your brand if you're going to choose personal brand as the option. So I'm going to go ahead over to the questions section on the chat really quick just to make sure I don't miss any questions going on. But if you have any questions about brand foundations, vision, or mindset, just use the chat box on the right and I'm happy to answer that for you. And if not, we'll move on to the next lesson. So I have some questions that are similar to the ones that we had posted in the Facebook page. So don't worry, ladies, I am definitely going to get to you. Melanie says she's an introvert and chose a personal brand. Don't worry, Melanie. We actually have some interesting content that we're going to be sharing with the group and in our newsletter about the different avenues introverts can go down and how they can make entrepreneurship work for them. I'm sure you've already figured out a lot on your own, but if you need some extra tips, we will be talking about that topic in particular. It's more popular than I think most people realize. But do let me know a little bit more info if you have what kind of personal brand you chose, because I do believe you're doing product as well. So just let me know how you see yourself set up as a personal brand, and we'll definitely make sure to keep that in mind as well. So let's go ahead to what week 2 was in the Branding Academy, and that was naming your brand. So this is the fun part, but I will say if you have a premium brand or a luxury brand, or you're really gung-ho about having the best name under the sun, I do know a couple of references for brand naming experts who are way more adept at this than I am. It is their bread and butter. It's what they've studied for life. They have their own agencies. It will need its own little budget, but at the end of the day, if you're really serious about it, then I'm happy to send you a reference. So of course, just message me afterwards if you need it. But I'm a nitty gritty, get your elbows dirty kind of girl. I do things DIY. Every company I've had, I've named them. So I'm hoping some of you are like me and you just want to make sure you have the best name possible. And you set yourself up with a little bit of patience to make sure that you know it's going to be a bit of a process, unless you're one of those people who gets super lucky and you come across a name and you just know it's the right one. So going to go ahead and take a little bit of a pause here so that I can ask everybody on the call to type in the name of their business in the chat box. So I'll give you guys just about 60 seconds to do that so I can keep that in mind after we go over this lesson. Okay, so everybody's typing in their names. I'm hoping that I will be able to pronounce them correctly, but feel free to correct me when I get to you if not. But let's go ahead and go over what naming your brand entails. So students of Branding Academy have the full module, but I'll just basically distill this for everybody else and let you know a little bit about the types of names that you can possibly have. And this is fun. I don't want people to be overwhelmed or doubtful. You really have to have, again, mindset is super key for things like this, because when you set yourself up with the right mindset and you're open and you're not stressed, that's when ideas just hit you out of the blue. So be like me, a fan of tangible things, which include notebooks, Post-its, and pens. Always keep them in your purse, in your pockets, in your jackets, wherever, because you literally do not know when you'll get the best idea for a name. I normally get them in my sleep, which is really annoying because I totally get out of my REM and just come up with the best ideas. But make sure you're always having something with you mobile, because once you really open yourself up and you don't overwhelm yourself with the process, you'll realize that it's fun and you will have good ideas strike you at any moment. This is also going to be key for people who are rebranding, which I always try to bring that home, that people that are taking Branding Academy, or anyone else for that matter, if you realize that what you have already in place is probably not the best for longevity or the future or for the vision that you're going to be creating for yourself, you have to also be open to changing that. Don't be so attached. It's very difficult to say. Obviously, it's easier said than done. It's like letting go of a child, but definitely keep yourself open to the fact that what you have right now might not be the best for the long term. So let's go ahead into these types of brand names. So expressive, you know, obviously that can be a little bit self-explanatory, but it's just something that is, you know, evocative. It kind of speaks to you in an expressive way. It's more of a connective, emotional type word than a word that really means what it is that you do. So if you guys are familiar with, you know, Monster, which is the job career matching site, or Accenture or Segway, it's just expressive words. So it's actual words in the English language, not really in line with what you offer as a product or service, but it's just an expressive way of kind of picking a name out of the bag. I'm not so much a fan of that anymore. I think in the 90s, you know, having a website where you would find your job called Monster, you know, it seemed fun, but in these days it's such a competitive field with everything being online, everything's going digital. I think you need a little bit more, but if you have come across an expressive word and you really, really think that it works for you, then don't give up on it, but definitely focus group it, which we'll talk about later. Get some feedback before you get too attached. Descriptive and practical words. So that's a little bit of combining, again, words that are not made up, they're part of the English language, but you're compounding them to make them a little bit more explanatory of what you do. So examples of that: Dunkin' Donuts, 24-hour fitness, 7-Eleven, Hotmail. I love the Hotmail example because hot and mail has nothing to do with each other, but put together in one word, it's a brilliant word that has lasted, I mean, how many decades for them now? So it's hold up, but just being able to put hot with the word mail, as opposed to something like Google, who then had to have Gmail, so it's a little bit more descriptive. You can see that you can kind of make up things if you add them to words that are already part of the English language. Then we have an imaginary kind. So that's completely made up words or letters or synonyms that you're putting together into one word and creating a completely new word for the dictionary. So examples of that is Rolex or JetBlue, Verizon, LoJack. Now, why is JetBlue an example here? That's because they made it into one word. Although those are two words that actually exist, they put it into one and now have made up their own word, JetBlue Airlines. And then, of course, we have, lastly, abbreviations or acronyms. And examples of that is LG, like the phone and the electronics producers, IBM for computers, A&W, the drink, and Alco. So these are just examples, or UPS or FedEx, of course, you guys know I like to use that example a lot as well. So I'm sure you've come across a lot of these different brands in your everyday use as a consumer, whether they're expressive, descriptive, imaginary, or abbreviations. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some of the names that you guys have sent me in the chat box and see if I'm making sure I pronounce it properly. So Sandra is her name. So a lot of you guys have your name, and when I go over the examples, you'll see that I've done the same as well. So personal brands, or you haven't come across the product, service, or company brand name you want, you've already chosen your name as the brand, which is fine. So that I'm hoping that if you've chosen your own name right now, that you will be more open to coming across a more descriptive or expressive or imaginary name later on if you decide to go down the different archetypes of product, service, or company umbrella archetype. So we have Sandra Lucia Diaz, my very, very good friend. So she's using her name. Melanie is also using her name. Alma is using Alma & Co. Stephanie is using her name, and then her website is luthien.org. And then we have a Shori & Co. Oh, so we have two co's. Great. Her second brand is a Beauty Ninja. And then Melanie is thinking about School of Style. I kind of like that. Definitely, I'm hoping, Melanie, you've definitely already Googled and to see how competitive that is, because those compounded words together probably has a lot of competition going on in search engines. So let's go ahead and talk about examples. Now, these are my personal examples, but I've already, of course, shown you examples with types that we all know about, whether it's UPS or Apple or Target. But for personal examples, so you kind of have this resonate with you, I'll go over a few businesses and projects that I've worked on so you can see what the process has been like for me, because I do practice what I preach with this. I go everywhere with a little notebook and pen, so when inspiration strikes, I'm ready. So back in the day, before I really knew for sure I wanted to have a design brand, because I went to school for design and journalism. So I was a magazine editor for fashion, and then I really wanted to make use of my degree before I died. So I finally opened my design company, Homewares and Fashion. But I had come across this name in a dream, Opaline, and that is a descriptive, expressive type of name. Really doesn't mean much to people who don't know what it means, but lo and behold, I found out it actually does mean something. It's a stone, and it happens to be my birthstone. So I don't know how that happened, but obviously the spirit world was talking to me in a dream. And I came up with a name that I found out was my own birthstone for my month, October. And I really wanted that as a name. And we built the whole brand around it. We had the most beautiful colors and fonts picked out. The website was already built. Everything was set up to go with this name, Opaline. And at the time, it was meant to be a brand that would compete with Anthropologie and very beautiful high-end boutiques in New York. And I wanted Opaline to be the name that would take us there, so that if we franchised the brand later, which I thought was my big vision when I did my vision statement and board for this years ago, Opaline would be a great chain store brand name. And then I thought long and hard about it, and years later, still working on the branding, still doing other things at the same time, I thought, man, well, who do I really see myself as later on down the road? And I thought and I thought and I thought about it. And when I realized I wasn't going to do fashion first, I was going to do homewares, I was like, maybe I should just go with what the industry is known for. Jonathan Adler, Tory Burch, Donna Karan, Ralph Lauren, just using your own name. And I think, like I mentioned, mindset is a big part of that, because at that time, I'm not, in my 40s or 50s, I'm not Ralph Lauren by any means. I don't have the credibility or the authority, and so we'll talk ourselves out of thinking that we deserve to put our name out there or put ourselves out there. And I wasn't going to be a personal brand. It was still a design brand, but I was nervous that I was starting at the very beginning using my name, and my idols were people that, it's household names. But at the end of the day, I ended up choosing my name. I thought it would be the best. It still works to have different store locations named after your name. Obviously, we know that because you can walk into a Tom Ford store, a Ralph Lauren store, a Donna Karan store. And so that's what I ended up going with, and I had to scrap Opaline, and of course that's like a huge decision, which I mentioned to you guys before. To get so attached to something, especially for me, it was a 3-year process, and then let such a good name go. But if you do what I said and you keep that little notebook, you can always revisit these names later on, and I ended up using it for something much smaller, just a product brand. But you don't have to let it go altogether, but you have to be open to what's the best for your vision, your big macro 5-year, 10-year plan vision, and what's good for your mindset. Are you doing something because you're scared, or are you doing something because it's the best for you? Now, for my tech company, when we went through the app development incubator, I came up with a name that I thought was perfect. Now, it's called Coterie, but on paper, you could see it listed here. We were in an incubator that is dominated by men. Obviously, mobile apps are mostly driven by male app developers. So I was one of only 2 females in the class. Nobody had ever heard of this word before. It is actually a word, but I'm coming from the context of being a huge Francophile. I love everything French, which I think a lot of you guys can tell by now with the word femme-boss. But on paper, nobody could pronounce this. So when people were shaking hands, and every week we would meet new people in the incubator program, everybody had their try at how to say this word. And it kind of reminded me of grade school when people tried to say my name and they would say tissue or tita or whatever. And you kind of laugh and you're like, no, that is totally not correct. So it became part of one of the classes at some point. We spent a whole week on names and everybody tried to pronounce it. And I realized, wow, this is actually an issue. And then on top of that, doing our research, you find out in trademarking and when you get to the legality part of doing your brand, you got to realize if there are other companies in your same market, you can't use that same name, even if you feel like you're not doing the same exact thing. So Coterie is a huge, huge fashion market brand. They put on trade shows and they put on fashion week shows. So I would have gotten sued to pieces. They're actually known for suing smaller companies. So they have our same name, and also people couldn't pronounce it. And it broke my heart. It took me like 12 weeks to let go of that name, but I had to do it. So that's another example of doing what's best for you and for your target market, and how easy are you setting yourself up for success in the future. So we ended up changing the name to Localet. So I still had a little bit of that eensy beensy, feminine French feeling at the end with the ETTE, but it was a word in itself, local, and it spoke more to what the subject matter of the app was, which was finding local businesses. So it ended up working, but I really had to let go of my first choice. Now, so that's an example of an expressive one. Now, Pick Me Meal Club was meal plans for digital nomads, women, mothers, entrepreneurs, people that really wanted to be healthy and fit, and there's a lot of competition for that. At the end of the day, I wanted something that kind of seemed exclusive, just a little tiny bit, not in a pretentious way, but so just exclusive in the sense that it felt like a community. So I put the word club in there right off the bat, and I wanted to really get most of my target market from online. The other businesses, I was used to doing event marketing, I was used to, having stores, this and that, but I knew for this company, it had to be driven online, and it would be delivered online. It was going to be delivered through a membership hub and through email. So knowing that, SEO was going to be the main thing for us. So with that in mind, I had to go see what competition was doing. I had to judge, what were AdWords going to cost us, what's going on in Google and Bing and MSN, what was going to happen if we chose a name that was similar to other people. And at the end of the day, I couldn't just say Meal Club, obviously, because I would end up be paying $10 per click, and I would never get to the top of Google results with that kind of name, and it wouldn't be as memorable. Even in context, speaking friend to friend, hey, have you checked out Meal Club? Those are the types of exercises you have to do. When I say focus group, just have a conversation using your word. Don't feel silly. Go to the mirror, talk to yourself, record yourself, write it down, put it into context and see, does that word, or do the words combine together? Does the name carry its weight? Is it going to be as valuable now to me in 10 years from now? And Meal Club by itself didn't. But I knew I was setting myself up to have a descriptive name, because Meal Club is just describing exactly what I'm selling. But I wanted something that kind of was a little bit fun and cheeky, because I'm a silly, goofy person. So I ended up adding Pick Me at the beginning because we literally were just talking about the name. And I was like, well, I want them to pick me. And lo and behold, that ended up being the name that I chose. And people loved the name. We would get emails about people saying that it was so different from the other ones out there, and that they just thought it was super cute. So that's just an example of how much process you're going to have to go through to really let go, open your mind, not be so focused, not be so attached, keep it going, be patient, write it down, have conversations, focus group it, get feedback. It's not going to be an overnight thing. Think about the long term. And then for Femboss, as you can see, again, just wanting to use something with a little bit of a French francophile feel to it. Femme meaning girl in French, and then boss came from me literally wanting to say girl boss. I was so focused on having Girl Boss be the name of this brand for the magazine and for all the events that we were going to put on, but I could not compete with Sophia Omarosa because her book just came out a year ago. So it was just going to be an uphill battle. I'm pretty sure that in terms of trademark, wouldn't have been a problem there, but she's getting bigger. She's worth enough that there could be a lawsuit down the road, especially if she grew that side of her brand, which she's now doing podcasts and stuff like that. So if she was going in the business arena, why would I set myself up later to hope that I would have the team and the money to fight her back on a word that she, pretty much dominated first? So I really wanted it, but I couldn't use it. And so I just thought back to what I personally like, and I just did a French twist on it, and that's how we came up with Femboss. And the hashtag is very much a part of it too, because I want it to drive home the point that this was created in a digital age, and we're trying to be kind of like an anti-digital establishment. So we're using the culture and the trend of digital, but we want to take what we do offline and make it about community orienting. So that kind of is the story behind FemBoss. And same thing for Solo Girl Squad. We have a lot of people that want us to make it an abbreviated acronym type of brand, but I think we're pretty much going to spell out the name and make it a descriptive name. So just Solo Girl Squad is going to be the name of that company when we end up launching that app. So those are different examples. You can see how much work we had to put into getting these done, and how we used the types of names to identify how we want it to sound, how we want it to resonate with people in our target market, how the competition was going to come into play, how search engine optimization was going to come into play, marketing. A lot goes into that. So for this lesson, it's your turn now. I want you to really spend this weekend, the next week, the next month, however long it takes. It depends on what stage you are in your business, and think about what your brand does for your ideal market. So when brainstorming starts, you have to keep open. So go get that little notepad, keep Post-its, get a pen and a pencil. You never know when ideas are going to strike you. And it's important to keep your name in sync with your brand values, your message, and your positioning. So always keep that in mind. It's not about you. If it was about you, then that means you need to set up your business to make enough income off of you buying your own products and services for the rest of your life. It's not about you, it's about your customers, and it's about how your company and service is going to benefit those customers. So just always make sure you're keeping in your values and your messaging for that target market in mind. So does anyone have any questions about the naming your brand module? And then I saw, Melanie, you said that was one of your concerns. Which concern did you have while I was chatting there? I didn't see the rest of your question. Stephanie thinks that she needs to work on her name a little bit. So you have S. Degus Creative Text. So yeah, I would need to know, Stephanie, a little bit more about what you're going to be offering to help you, but it sounds like a very interesting name. So far, I like it, but I'm not sure what you're going to be doing. School of Style would be too popular, Melanie says. Alma says that she wants to introduce a membership model to her company, Alma & Co. If she should name it something differently, or just stick with Alma & Co. and introduce a new product. So Alma, you can unmute yourself, or if you're unmuted already, let me know a little bit more about what you're working on.
Oh, yes, there you go. Can you hear me there?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Yes, I have this company, and I've been thinking about doing the membership, like a monthly box.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been playing with it for a while. I did try kind of add it to the website, but I didn't see anything going for it. So right now I'm wondering if it would be better to just pretty much create another company and just do another name and perhaps a simple one-page website or something like that to start.
Definitely a very valid question. And like I've always said on every call and in the group a lot, I've been in every industry in the last 15 years, so I can definitely resonate with you there, because we've introduced 3 different membership and subscription models. And what I've done is that usually I set out with either knowing I'm going to have a subscription model for the income, because I know I need to have cash flow, and I'll set that up as a business on its own with its own landing page. Or if it's going to fall under the umbrella of what I'm designing, and you are a design company like I am, then I will test both, because you really never know what's going to work better. And so for Letitia Elizabeth, we had a completely different company, new website, new everything, and its own target market for the box monthly model. And then after a while, we introduced it underneath just Letitia Elizabeth and just listed it as a product on the website. And it seems to do a little bit better when it's its own business. I mean, it's pretty early for me to tell, but when it comes to being a design company like you are, I would say test both, because you just never know what your market reacts to. And for me, why I say it worked better having its own business, its own website or landing page, is that the press and the media kind of respond a little bit better when it's its own thing that can be described really easily. The target market of subscription or membership customers, they're a beast on their own. They come with their own personality type, their own customer service issues, their own logistical issues. They have a whole industry of bloggers just for that, reviewing them, YouTubers. So it's really, really helpful that you are completely prepared for that. It's a beast of a thing to do and set yourself up for. I wouldn't say that it's going to be super easy and light and that you can do it as a solo entrepreneur. Unless, you know, you're just trying to do something really, really small, like one item per box once a month, and you're going to cap your membership at maybe 50 or 100. But if you really want this to be something that has potential and can grow, I would say that set up a landing page for it, and be prepared to know that it's going to come with its own different engine that's going to be need its own acute attention to it. So, you know, I would recommend doing both at this time. So if you're going to do the landing page option, then just I wouldn't go crazy worrying about the name if you're in the testing phase. I don't like to say that on a call like this and have everybody hear it and say, oh, okay, I'll do that too, and just test anything. But I would say don't go too crazy if you're going to be in testing mode to see if it should stay being its own website or if it should just come on your website as a product in your catalog. But come up with something cute that's relative to what you sell, something fun, something memorable, because at the end of the day, the membership and subscription community is all about descriptive words, very, very descriptive words. Sometimes you'll get the expressive ones. Obviously, the pioneer in the industry is Birchbox, so that's just a completely expressive imaginary word. Well, they're putting two words together. The word birch is a real word, but it's very expressive. It has nothing to do with beauty. So I would say, you know, don't get too racked up on that, because there's a lot of boxes out there that are just literally named after what they sell. You know, the candle of the month, or Yogi Surprise, or, you know, snack box. So if you want to just go out there, make a landing page for it, make the first product, take a couple of pictures, get your first customers, and you have a name that's just very simple and descriptive, don't feel like you're less than because of that, because you're going to be fitting right in at home with the industry that you're serving. If you find that it has a lot of potential, like we did with ours, and that the revenue is coming in and you're consistently getting new customers, and that it could use its own marketing budget, its own team, and you want to bring it in-house, then do the branding process over and start tweaking your copy. Go back to the name if you want to rename it. But I would say just get started now and test it. Do a landing page and also add it as a product on your website and see what works best for you.
Okay, that sounds good. I actually, the first name that I had in mind, it was the Rouge box, just like as in red. Just because I imagine in my head that I could use red as a really cute, you know, accent color for the box itself, and then just go from there. But it's definitely nothing to do with what's inside the box. So yes, I'm that's a good idea.
I can see the Rouge box being cute in the scenario of selling, you know, very cheeky items for women, a lingerie box, a beauty box. For you, if you're doing jewelry or design products, just see how you can contextually make it work a little bit more. But like I said, expressive words don't really necessarily have to be super on point, which I know Sally was asking a question like that, which we'll get to her later. But it doesn't always have to be on point. But if you can make it somehow contextually just a little bit more relative, so that, you know, customers see it and they're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. You know, you don't want to confuse them, because everything is about credibility and trust online for e-commerce. So you don't want to make too many obstacles in between them thinking what you are and having a transaction happen. So see how you can, you know, either the packaging is red every month, no matter what's on the inside, or there's something really cute and cheeky that you include each time to kind of drive home that Rouge word that kind of elicits an evocative type of description when it comes to mind.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody have a question that they want to speak live and unmute themselves? If not, then I'll go on to the next slide and answer everybody's questions from the chat box later on. I'll give you guys a few seconds. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to the last and final slide. So this week in Branding Academy, the students were focusing on taglines. So this should be exciting because a lot of people, no matter what stage you're at, you need to be focusing on your taglines. A lot of people that are rebranding want to focus on their taglines. Taglines are important no matter what stage you are, and I will prove that to you just by letting you know that when it comes to marketing, that's when a tagline can be handy. So it doesn't matter if you've been in business for 2 weeks or 2 years. When it comes to marketing, you can implement a tagline and have that work for your copywriting and your messaging. I mean, you can turn on the TV and see commercials where all of a sudden a company that we've all known for, you know, a decade or more will have this brand new tagline that we really resonate with. They've turned it into a fancy jingle and we start singing it all over the place, or it just becomes really popular. So it doesn't matter how long you've been in business, whether you're just starting or you've been around the block, taglines are really, really helpful to think about and implement in your branding process. So what you kind of want to make sure you do with your taglines is keep them simple, direct, and memorable. But underneath that, you also want to see if they can emotionally connect with your target market and your ideal customer. If your name itself is not doing that, if it's not eliciting some kind of emotional connection or really inspiring some kind of thought to what you offer as a service or a product. So when it comes to the tagline, it's your absolute first impression after the name to help customers visualize what your business offers. So whether that's you as a person, because you're a personal brand, or it's a product or a service or a umbrella or family of brands, this is your first impression. So if you have a logo that has the name and then the tagline underneath it, if you have a website that has the logo and then the tagline underneath it, if you use your tagline in your merchandising, it's your first impression. And we've said this in a couple of other live calls. When it comes to online, which a lot of us have an online marketing funnel, whether it's a website or a blog or whatever you do, when it comes to online, you have 8 seconds. I didn't say 80, 8, the number after 7. So literally 8 seconds of time for a person to come on your page and decide if they want to stick with it before they leave. They decide if they want to browse or they leave. They decide if they want to bookmark you or they leave. So your name and your tagline is it. I mean, if you break down the 8 seconds of a really busy website, and a lot of us need help with our websites, that's why we do website critiques every week, then you know within 8 seconds how much can you literally get a customer to do who's super distracted and has a baby in her arm and 30 other browser tabs open. What can you do in 8 seconds that's going to help emotionally connect to that customer and have them know what you offer in some way, or at least elicit curiosity? So if I had to break down 8 seconds and I have my name and my tagline and maybe a slider image that's going on or maybe a pop-up, you know, you can only fit so much in 8 seconds. So you really, really want to take the time to make your tagline the best that it can possibly be. But the good news, again, is that you don't have to get too attached, because taglines are things that you can evolve as you go along with your business. And the biggest of big brands do this. You know, like Bounty with the Cleaner Picker Upper. I mean, these are things that you can start one way and end up another, so you don't have to feel completely overwhelmed that what you start with now as your tagline is what's going to be your tagline years from now. But when it comes to having digital assets and a website or an online presence of some sort, you want the first one that you choose to at least be an impression that's going to hold that customer interested so that they keep browsing, they connect with you, they become a lead, they request a call session with you if you're a coach, they sign up for your newsletter if you're a service or a product. So taglines are important. Give yourself enough time and mindset window to develop one that's really going to work for your business and your marketing. So let's go over really quickly what the branding students learned in the module for taglines so that you can kind of work on this as an exercise for yourself coming up this weekend and going forth. I like to say the weekend because I do my homework for myself on the weekend, but not everybody has to follow me. But again, you want to keep your notebook handy, pen and paper, whatever. You never know when ideas strike, so just make sure that that's available to you. Now, as usual, I'm going to give you guys some time in the chat box to start typing in any questions you might have about taglines. We did get a couple on the call, on the Facebook event page. So I'm just going to give you guys a few seconds for those that are in the chat alone to just go ahead and type in any questions you might have about taglines, and then we'll go over a couple of ideas of what the Branding Academy students learned. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just describe really briefly a few types of taglines that you can have. This is going to be very similar to what I described as the types of names that you can have so that you can visualize this when you hear them. So one type of tagline you can have is functional. And the descriptions we had for this in the Branding Academy was the quicker picker upper, like I already mentioned, for Bounty. Finger looking good, KFC. I was so bad. I was doing so good with my health and fitness plan and totally had KFC because my family wanted KFC. But it was finger looking good. And now they have finger looking good sauce. So that worked for them. And then Staples is a good example of someone that evolved their tagline. Their tagline is now, that was easy. When we were kids, that was never their tagline, but now they've come up with this tagline that now works in their commercials and in store with their big blown up boards and their wallpaper decals and the big red button that you just tap and that was easy. It's now a whole, kind of like cheeky, sketchy thing that they have going on where they've made it into cute little sketches for commercials and their radio advertising. So like you can see, if you have a tagline that's simple, direct, and memorable, you can make it work for you for years to come when it comes to your copywriting, messaging, positioning, or your advertising. Another type is character-driven. So this is the kind that is going to be more emotional. And the examples for this is reach out and touch someone, which is one of the taglines for AT&T. One of my favorites is a diamond is forever, which is De Beers. I mean, how popular were those commercials, right? That tagline really, really was almost like a pop culture phenomenon for a good chunk of time. A diamond is forever is in songs. You can actually find them in actual records, people saying that phrase. So that's a really good tagline. And then of course another popular one, Because I'm Worth It by L'Oreal. Again, another pop culture phenomenon. People just going around wearing t-shirts that say it, people just going up to other people and say, I'm worth it. It's also in songs. So you've hit gold, you struck gold when you have a tagline that people start to use because it's come so popular. Another example of a tagline type is aligned with a category. So examples of that is My Life, My Card, which is American Express. So they've been endorsed with celebrities in their commercials now, and that's how they start off their script, My Life, My Card, and then they visually paint the picture of following, Samuel L. Jackson and Tina Fey as they go about their daily grind and show how they use their card in their everyday life. So that's a very descriptive tagline, but it's a tagline that really opens itself up to connecting emotionally with people so that they can say, oh, you know what? My American Express card does do a lot for me. It does do a lot for my life. So that's a tagline that, like I said here, is emotionally connecting with their ideal audience. CNN, the most trusted name in news, and Petco, where the pets go. So those are examples of taglines that are aligned within a specific category. Now, we're going to get to the more abstract versions, and of course I never have a live call without mentioning Apple, so here we go. I'm very much a Steve Jobs girl. Aspirational taglines. Think different by Apple. I mean, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? What does it even really mean? But now, years later, it means a lot. It basically is just summing up their brand value, their positioning statement, very simply in 2 words. In every commercial, that's how it ends. It's all over their website. It's what people say to each other now. It defines a cult, you know, the cult following of Apple products, because you're thinking differently. You're not part of the status quo. So it's 2 words, but it means so much more than just the 2 words. The CA Milk Processor Board, got milk. Again, that was a huge campaign-driven tagline. That was in magazines and advertisements. It was in commercials. It was another big celebrity endorsing type of campaign they had, with everybody having the milk mustache. So a very easy, memorable, fun, pop culture type aspirational tagline. And then Honda, the power of dreams, was one of their taglines as well. And then when we get to the version of slogans and jingles, for anyone that might include radio advertising later on, or video, YouTube, just something that's going to be a little bit more tangible and sensory for people, you might want to consider slogans and jingles for your taglines, or your tagline that can be made into a slogan and jingle later if you're musically inclined. So examples of that include Stronger Than Dirt, Ajax, Works Like a Dream, Ambien, and of course, who can forget Chevy trucks, Like a Rock. I used to sing that song all the time when I came on TV. So those are a few examples of the different types of taglines that you can do. So again, slogans and jingles, more abstract, aspirational type ones, categorical ones, or character-driven or functional. So when we say functional, again, think about Bounty, the quicker picker-upper. You're kind of describing what it does in a fun, just functional, practical type of way. So again, to recap, you want to keep your taglines short. You want to use present tense as much as possible, because using negative or past tense is not as powerful as using present tense. So always keep that in mind. Stick to one idea in your tagline. Don't try to encapsulate too much into one tagline, because that's when you start to get people a little bit wary in that 8-second window that they land on your page, or whether it's in person. You're just confusing them. They're not sure what you're offering. You know, how many products do you have? What are you actually selling? What's the benefit to them? So the more you expand on your tagline, the more chances you have of losing the customer. So try to stick to one idea. Keep your benefits in mind as much as possible. Don't get hung up on that. Definitely don't focus on features, but when you have the room in your tagline, focus on benefits before you focus on features. How does it benefit your customer? Keep it positive. So again, no negative statements. Don't use the word no or never in your tagline. That's a big timeout corner situation. So we do have our FemBoss Timeout Center. We will be happy to send you there. So remember, don't use any type of negative connotation in your tagline. So we have a brainstorm worksheet for the Branding Academy students. But for everybody else that's a part of the FemBoss group, if you just want to use the group itself to get feedback, to use it as a focus group for your name and for your tagline, please feel free. And we're going to go ahead and start opening it up to questions now, because we are all done for weeks 1 through 3 for the Branding Academy. So if you are on the call and using the chat box, go ahead and type in any final questions you have. If you're on audio and you want to unmute yourself, go ahead. I'm going to start with the ones that were posted in the Facebook group, which I think can relate to a lot of people here. So I'm going to go ahead with that and just end the screen share here. Okay, so the first question we have was from Sally, who I don't think can join us live today, but her question was, does the tagline have to be a combination of brand and what you offer and what you sell, or is just a general theme okay? So for her example, her company is Runner's Beans, which is a multivitamin. But she's a very smart girl. I'm very proud of her, because she realized by doing her research that when it comes to SEO, search engine optimization, that people don't really search for the word multivitamin as much as they search for the word supplement. So you don't want to be losing out on all that potential revenue simply because you're too narrow-minded to realize you are simply just missing out on the right word that your ideal target market is using. So with that said, she currently has her tagline as a supplement designed for runners. But she wants to know, is that better than a more descriptive or beneficially driven tagline, such as optimal nutrition for runners, which is, you know, her USP, her unique selling point? Or something like optimize your training, which I find to not be as strong. If you're going to say optimize your training, I don't think that hits home as much as saying your optimal nutrition for runners. So her current one is a supplement designed for runners, and I would personally vote for her other option, optimal nutrition for runners. I think in that you can emotionally hit home more with people that will not see it as closed off, because when you say a supplement designed for runners, I almost see just one item. And you do have one item right now, Sally, but when you say optimal nutrition, I feel like you're really embodying a lot more. And I feel like you're giving me a lot more. And I'm not instantly thinking about one little pill that I'm going to be taking when you say supplement in the tagline, so much as I'm thinking about my holistic health when you say optimal nutrition. I feel like those two words together as the start of a tagline is supremely powerful, more so than a supplement. And again, you are mentioning that you are starting to sell other options like smoothies or drinks, or you're selling other companies' products. So if that's going to be something that continues, optimal nutrition is definitely the best bet, so that you're not losing that authority, you're not losing that trust and credibility when you have a tagline that says one thing and then people go on your products page and see a list of other products. So optimal nutrition on a macro level, thinking about 5 years and 10 years out, is definitely probably the best bet to go. I would say continue to brainstorm, get there in the group, jump in the group, post what you have, see what kind of feedback you get. I'm definitely not the be-all and end-all, but from my experience, I would definitely recommend your second option, optimal nutrition for runners. It has a bigger possibility longevity-wise when you're thinking about what you're going to be selling in the future. Bethany's question this week was, what tagline speaks to an affluent customer? So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys something that hopefully you check out later. So I'm going to do another screen share. Now, this is a great story. So Kuyana is, their tagline is fewer, better things. And why I wanted to point out this one, not just for Bethany or other people that have affluent customers as their target client, like I do, but this works for everybody. I think no matter if you're high-end or low-end or mass market, everybody should think this way when it comes to what is going to resonate with a niche market. So Bethany is selling Veriter, which is a prestige beauty company, skincare and beauty products. And congratulations to her. She was on Evine and sold out her products on the shopping network, so that was really exciting. But even if you don't have high-end customers, I just want to show you an example of a company that's still in their baby stages. I love them. And they really went through the ringer trying to figure out the best tagline for them. But theirs is fewer, better things, as you can see right here in the top left of their website. And look how they've extended it as their pop-up for their newsletter by simply saying fewer, better. So join us on our journey to live a life filled with fewer, better things. In exchange, we promise to you fewer, better emails. How cute is that? So instantly would sign up, because I'm already being promised that I won't be bombarded with spam or, their promotional marketing or anything. I would be intrigued to see what they actually send me. Now, Kuyana is basically a product company that sells fashion and accessories that is the creme de la creme of materials, of textures, of the actual manufacturing process. So the best cashmere sweaters and the best leather bags and accessories, wallets, and so on and so forth. But what I want to bring your attention to as well, if you guys have some time, and I'll post this in the group as well, the link to it, is their story in Inc. magazine about how they actually got to this point of having their tagline. It's a really interesting story, and I think it will help a lot of you. So it's two women, and they founded the Kuyana company, and they basically go into detail and explain how the tagline has meant so much more to them now with their marketing and defining who their target customer is and their their promotional work, their advertising, just everything. So tagline can really, really do a lot of work for you guys at the end of the day. When in doubt for copywriting, when in doubt for advertising and marketing, when in doubt for social media, your tagline can really rescue you out of the depths of frustration. So it's definitely something that you want to pay attention to and do a lot of work on. So I will post that link for you guys, but it's how the right tagline can turn your company around, from the founders of QAna. It's on Inc.com. So I'll post that link. But for me, we went ahead and went with Wake Up Like This for the Letitia Elizabeth company. So for Bethany's question, I just wanted to point out to you that we kind of didn't use the pop culture name orient. I went ahead with my name, but when it came to the tagline, we did go ahead and use something that was popular and yet descriptive. So obviously, Wake Up Like This was something that was much of a pop culture phenomenon in the Beyonce song Flawless, but it was really something that just completely resonated with what we were going for when we went through our branding process of thinking about who our customer was, what we want them to feel, what we're going to be offering them, what our brand promise is, what our values are. And so it's just really something that stuck with me long beyond we came up with other ideas. It was something I could not let go of. And so that ended up being our tagline. We switched them out a little bit seasonally, but we have an affluent customer base, Bethany. So, pillows and bedding, 300 to 500. So it's definitely the same target market, and you can still make it work for you in your own context. So who would think, that a very popular song from an urban R&B singer that then went on to be used by, a ton of other brands and in news and media could be something that you would use for a very high-end product or service, but it can. You just have to make it work for your context, and it has to not be seen as, popular for popular's sake. It actually needs to work contextually for what you're offering. So I hope that answers your question, Bethany. You can have a tagline that is anything you think of, descriptive, expressive, imaginary. It doesn't matter. But so long as it fits within what you're offering, and I personally know that you're offering something that's really high-end and prestige and the best of the best, and you're really focused on ingredients and your packaging is gorgeous. So I would just start to think, what do you want them to know about how you're different? And then go back to your personality as well. So are you someone that's fun? Are you cheeky? Are you serious? Are you results driven? That might be something I know from speaking to you in the last class, that you do want people to know a lot about the results that they'll see or what issues they're having. So maybe it could be like a compound tagline where you're using the comma to separate the benefits from the results. So for Solo Girl Squad, for example, one of the options we had on our brainstorming worksheet was, lonely today, but friends tomorrow kind of thing. So we're using the comma to separate what kind of situation do you feel like you're in right now versus what's the potential of your situation tomorrow. So with a beauty company like yours, you can kind of use that comma the same way that QAna did to separate two types of concepts in one tagline. And then for Sandra. So Sandra's still on the call. So she is a fashion illustrator and a motions graphics designer. And she wanted to know, do you have to focus on one niche or brand if you're a multi-talented artist? So when it comes to that goes back to week 1 that we described at the very top of the workshop today. What is your archetype? So I feel for you, you have two options actually. You can do personal brand and be known for yourself, which I know you, and I know that you're very outgoing, and anyone that can carry their weight meeting celebrities like Pharrell and then go live and draw Chanel at really beautiful boutiques and then work for an everyday person as a client. You pretty much are already positioning yourself to be a personal brand if you want to commit to being that outgoing and extroverted in the future and always being the face of stuff. But at the end of the day, you can also be a company brand that has a family of brands, so you can have the different services such as your illustration and your motion graphics, and offer that in kind of like a very professional agency type of setting. So it would be, Sandra would present this, and then here are the different options we have underneath it. And you could brand them separately on their own websites or landing pages, or you could keep them in one. So it's really up to you. From my perspective, I feel like you definitely have a good personal brand. So if it was you thinking about your vision in the long term, do you see yourself as someone that would be in a teaching position? Would you be doing books? Do you want to get invited to speak, whether it's TV or conferences? Do you want to be a role model for other people that are in illustration or digital arts? So kind of think about the vision statement a little bit. Think about the long-term goals that you have for yourself, your personal goals that need to be factored in, and then I think you'll find that the answer will kind of manifest itself for you. You're welcome. Love you too. Okay, so those were all the questions for Facebook. So I will give you guys just a couple more minutes. If you are on mute right now with your audio and you want to unmute yourself, go ahead. If you are using the chat box and you just want to ask a question, go ahead, but I'll give you guys just a couple more minutes to do that before we wrap up. Okay, so we have some new ones coming in the chat box. We have Melanie, who's posted The Art of Chic Living. And then I'm assuming the next line is her tagline, so her options would be your one-stop shop for the chic lifestyle. So Melanie, in that example, and of course, you know, we would have to have a longer conversation, but my initial feedback for that would be that you have two very abstract, vague things competing with each other. So your name is descriptive, but not descriptive enough because it ends at chic. So the art of chic living. And then if you had your tagline being the one-stop shop for the chic lifestyle, you're literally hanging on the word chic right there. That's all you're hanging on, but you're not really describing anything to me. And it could mean so many things, obviously a plethora of things. We could even survey people on the call right now and how they define chic, and it would be something different for everybody. So it could be that, you know, you're trying to be like another Martha Stewart and everything is chic, you know, your food, your entertaining, your gift giving, or you could literally just mean one kind of category of product. Maybe it's chic blazers and you just sell blazers and you're like, you know, for the maturing woman who loves to wear jackets and outfits instead of dresses. So it really doesn't actually give you a chance to describe a little bit more in detail what you do because you're hanging on the word chic in both your name and your tagline. So I would try to implement a word that's really going to turn that around for you, whether it's in your name or your tagline. I'm not a big fan of saying the one-stop shop ... for anything, unless it's really a killer name. But it sounds like you're already kind of set on having a combination of those words, the art of chic, somehow worked into your name, which is fine, but then let the tagline be something that speaks to it a little bit more. Okay, you're totally welcome. Okay, did anybody else have any questions, last minute questions? If not, just a reminder again that the Branding Academy is a paid school. If you want to become a member, you can still join. This would be the absolute last time to join the current class. If not, we might possibly be opening up in March, but I doubt it. Because it's only supposed to be once a year anyway, but we sold the FemBoss bundle, so we have some new students in the group. So if you do want to jump in and get all these modules, it's freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and we're going to be going into competition and target market descriptions, personas, all your branding assets. It's a really great experience. So if you want to register for the class, then shoot me a message in the group or send me an email, and I'm happy to get you guys registered. If not, we'll probably be doing 2 more workshop calls where you can kind of get a gist of some distilled information, some insight for anybody that's working on their brand or rebranding. Okay, so Ashuri Co, and then your tagline would be a down-to-earth girl optimized for design. So I think the same thing for Melanie there. Even though I'd like your name, the tagline is still not. I feel like you're missing maybe 1 or 2 words that could really help me understand what category you're working with. So what kind of design? And then the word optimize is a little bit formal. I don't know if it's the best word in combination with the down-to-earth girl. It sounds very techy, and then you're using down-to-earth, which is very next-door neighbory. So I think you have a little bit of play to go there. brainstorming to do with those combinations. But my key thing right now, the key takeaway for me, King, is that what type of design? Because I would probably be one of those customers that landed on the website in 8 seconds and would leave, because I'm definitely not interested in any web design right now, no print design, t-shirt design. So I would need to know what kind of design it is that you're talking about, and if I could just get a little inclination of it, then it would spark my curiosity, and then maybe I would stay a little bit longer on your website. You're very welcome. And again, for everybody on the call, for anyone listening for the replay, this is the perfect opportunity to mastermind and use a focus group, use our Facebook group, email your friends and family, obviously the non-biased ones, be smart about it, but get some feedback, because you don't want to get too attached and think non-objectively, subjectively about what you're working with without getting some feedback for people that might not understand something. It might seem very descriptive in your head, but it might be very vague to somebody else. So always make sure that you get a second opinion, and then a third and a fourth, and keep going until you really feel like you have the best. When you're in a position that doubt is really not even a factor, then I'm pretty sure that's when you can feel like you have your final option for your branding. Okay, ladies, so I'm super excited that you guys joined for this weeks 1 through 3 of the Branding Academy. I hope that even the people that aren't students in Branding Academy learned some new tips and tricks this week. And you have your homework set out for you, so get that notepad and pen ready. Go put one in your purse, in your winter coat if it's still cold where you are. I'm assuming it is for everybody because I'm freezing my booty off. And just keep it handy for when you're out and about and you have some ideas strike you. For me, that is the biggest takeaway, is not being prepared when you have a great idea. I cannot tell you how many times I've slapped myself in the face that I've literally been like on the train or just running about and I've had a good idea. Now we have iPhone 6, so of course you have every app in the world, so I will just voice record myself sometimes. But when you have an idea and you forget it, that's the worst feeling, when you get home and you're like, gosh, that would have been $1 million idea. And also always think exit strategy too. Some of us are setting ourselves up to sell our company in the future. So some of us just really want to be valued really well. Some of us want to be best-selling authors. So it is very important to be prepared when good ideas strike you, because you definitely want to have a name and tagline and brand foundation that's going to resonate for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years to come, be a legacy at the end of the day. So if that's one takeaway I can give you guys, be prepared for your ideas. And the second would be to mastermind the heck out of what you come up with out of your brainstorming sessions. So getting feedback from as many people as you can is just as valuable as being prepared for ideas striking you at any time of day, because other perspectives, other people, even people that are in the group that might be your potential customers or audience, can give you a perspective that you never even thought of. So do not undervalue or underestimate those two things, preparation and feedback. So I hope this was helpful to everybody. You are going to have this as a replay on Boss TV YouTube channel. We'll post a link in the Facebook group as well. And if you have any further questions, reach out in the group or post to me privately on Facebook or email me at any time, and we'll be happy to get back to you. So until next time, have a good day, ladies.